Sarah made $11 an hour. Not $11 an hour after a promotion. Not $11 an hour with tips on a good night. $11 an hour, period. 42 weeks out of the year, because the other 10 weeks her hours got cut without warning. And in 4 years, with that exact income, she built a full 12 months of living expenses in the bank. Not a $500 starter fund. Not 3 months if nothing goes wrong. A full year. The kind of savings account that means if she lost her job tomorrow, she wouldn't have to touch a single credit card until the following year. Here's the part that should bother you. The average person making 3 times her income has less than $1,000 saved. A report from the Federal Reserve found that a large share of adults couldn't cover an unexpected $400 expense with cash. Not because they don't earn enough, because of what they do with what they earn. And more importantly, what they believe about what they earn. So if you've been telling yourself, I'll start saving once I make more money, I need you to sit with that thought for a second. Because in about 18 minutes, you're going to find out that belief is the exact thing keeping you broke. Not your paycheck, that belief. By the end of this video, you're going to have the exact method Sarah used. A method that works whether you make $11 an hour or $31 an hour, broken down into steps you can start today. Not someday. Today. Let's get into it. Point 1. Why save more is the advice that's actually keeping you poor. Here's a question. If 2 people both try to save money, and one of them fails while the other one builds a year's worth of savings, what do you think separates them? Most people would guess it's income. The one who succeeded must have made more money, right? Wrong. In Sarah's case, and in study after study on savings behavior, the difference wasn't income. It was something almost nobody talks about, the order in which the money moves. Here's what that means. Most people get paid, and then they save whatever is left over at the end of the month. The problem is, on a low income, there is no leftover. Rent takes its share, groceries take their share, the car takes its share, and whatever's left, which is usually nothing, or worse, negative, is supposed to become your emergency fund. That's not a savings plan. That's a savings hope. The people who actually build savings on a low income do the opposite. They flip the order. The savings comes out first, before a single bill gets paid, before the grocery run, before anything. Financial researchers call this paying yourself first, and a study tracking automatic savings behavior found that people who automate a transfer the same day they get paid save at dramatically higher rates than people who try to save manually at the end of the month, even when the automated amount was smaller. Think of it like this. Imagine your paycheck is a plate of food, and everyone else at the table, rent, groceries, gas, gets to take their portion before you do. By the time the plate gets back to you, there's nothing left. Now imagine instead that you take your portion first, put it somewhere else, and then pass the plate around. Everyone else still eats, but so do you. That's the entire secret. Not a bigger plate. A different order. But here's where it gets interesting. Because if you're sitting there thinking, that's great, but I genuinely have nothing left to move first, you're about to find out that's not quite true either. Point 2. The number that's smaller than you think. I want you to guess something. What's the smallest amount of money you think could actually build real momentum toward a savings goal? Most people guess something like $100 a month, 200, some kind of number that feels serious enough to count. The real number is $5, not $5 a day, $5 a week. Here's why that number matters more than it sounds like it should. A savings account isn't just math, it's a habit loop being built in your brain. And your brain doesn't actually care whether the amount is $5 or $500 when it's forming that habit. What it cares about is consistency. A behavioral finance study on microsaving found that people who started with tiny, almost laughably small automatic transfers were more likely to still be saving a year later than people who started with larger amounts, because the larger amount felt painful enough to cancel, and the tiny amount didn't. So here's your first actual action step, and I want you to do this before you finish watching this video, not after. Open your banking app, set up an automatic transfer of $5, moving from checking to savings, the same day you get paid, not when you remember. Automatic. If your bank doesn't support that, Ally, Capital One 360, and Chime all let you automate transfers for free, and none of them require a minimum balance to open. $5 a week is $260 a year. That's not the emergency fund, that's the habit. And the habit is the part that actually determines whether you're one of the people who succeeds or one of the people who quits by March. You think starting small would slow you down compared to someone who saves aggressively for 2 months and burns out. Statistically, it's the opposite. The small starters are the ones still saving a year later, and the aggressive starters are usually the ones who quit. Which brings up the next problem. Because even if you build the habit, most people sabotage themselves with one specific mistake the second any real money shows up. Point 3. The windfall leak, where your progress actually disappears. Picture this: you get a tax refund, or a work bonus, or your cousin pays you back the $200 they owed you. For a second, you feel rich. And that feeling is exactly what causes the leak. Researchers have a name for money that arrives outside your normal paycheck. They call it windfall income, and there's a well-documented pattern around how people treat it. Money that arrives in a lump, separate from your regular paycheck, gets treated by your brain as less real than money you worked steady hours for. Which is why a $200 refund check disappears into takeout and a new pair of shoes almost twice as fast as $200 of actual paycheck would. This matters enormously on a low income, because windfalls are often the biggest single savings opportunity you'll get all year. A tax refund alone, for someone with a modest income and a couple of dependents, can be more money than you'd otherwise save through an entire year of $5 transfers combined. So here's the rule, and I want you to actually remember this one, because it's going to come up again later in this video. Any money that shows up outside your normal paycheck gets split before you touch it. Not spent, not saved in full, split. A simple version that works well. 70% goes straight to saving, 30% you're free to enjoy guilt-free. That 30% matters, because a savings plan that gives you zero enjoyment is a savings plan you'll eventually abandon. But the 70% is the part most people are currently giving away for free, without even noticing. Sarah's tax refund in year 2 of her savings journey was $1,400. She kept about $400 for herself. The other $1,000 went straight into the account. That single decision moved her timeline forward by nearly 4 months. Now, you'd assume the windfalls are where the real progress happens, since they're the big chunks. But that's actually not where most of Sarah's 12 months came from. The real engine was something smaller, something that happens every single week, and almost nobody accounts for it correctly. Point 4. The subscription you forgot you have. Quick gut check. Without looking at your bank statement, tell me, right now, in your head, how many subscriptions do you currently pay for? Got a number? Now go check your actual statement later and see how far off you were. A study on recurring subscription spending found that the average person underestimates their monthly subscription total by more than double. Not by 10 or 20%, by more than double. Streaming services, app subscriptions, a gym membership you stopped using in March, a free trial that quietly started charging you in June. Here's the part that should actually bother you. On a low income, this isn't a minor leak, it's often the difference between hitting your savings goal or not. If you're underestimating your subscriptions by even $30 or $40 a month, that's $480 a year quietly leaving your account for things you're not even using. So here's the second action step. Today, not this weekend, today, open your bank statement and look at the last 60 days of transactions. Highlight every recurring charge. For each one, ask one question: did I actively use this in the last 30 days? If the answer is no, cancel it. Right there, in the moment, before you talk yourself out of it. This isn't about never enjoying anything. It's about only paying for things you're actually using. Canceling a $12 app subscription you forgot about isn't a sacrifice, it's finding money you already had. You'd think finding this extra money would feel small compared to a big income jump. Statistically, for most low-income savers, it adds up to more over a year than a small raise would, because a raise gets absorbed into lifestyle almost instantly, while a cancelled subscription is money that simply stops leaving in the first place. And that leads directly into the biggest mistake of all. One that has nothing to do with subscriptions, and everything to do with a single, specific number sitting in your bank account right now. Point 5. Why your savings account might be losing you money. Here's something that sounds impossible. It's possible to save money every single week, for years, and still end up losing purchasing power the entire time. How? The account. Most people keep their savings in the exact same bank as their checking account. A regular big-name bank branch. And most of those regular savings accounts pay next to nothing in interest. Meanwhile, prices for everyday things creep upward every year. So while your account balance is technically going up, what that money can actually buy is going up more slowly than what things cost, sometimes not going up at all in real terms. Compare that to a high-yield savings account, the kind offered online by places like Ally, Capital One 360, or Marcus by Goldman Sachs, which typically pays many times more interest than a traditional in-branch savings account, with zero added risk, zero minimum balance in most cases, and your money is still insured the exact same way. Here's the analogy that makes this click. Imagine two people each put $100 in a jar, then bury it in the backyard for a year. One jar has a hole in the bottom, so a little bit leaks out every month. The other jar is sealed. Both people think they're doing the same thing, saving money in a jar. But only one of them actually ends up with what they think they have. A regular low-interest savings account is the jar with the hole. It's not decreasing dramatically. It's just quietly, invisibly underperforming, every single month, for as long as you leave your money there. You'd think switching banks would be a hassle not worth the effort for someone on a tight budget. Statistically, it's the opposite. Moving your existing savings balance to a high-yield account takes about 10 minutes online, requires no fee at either end in almost every case, and the extra interest earned costs you nothing to collect. It's the single highest return on effort move in this entire video, and most people never do it simply because they've never been told it exists. Third action step, this week, open a high-yield savings account online. Move your existing savings balance into it. Redirect your $5 automatic transfer to land there instead of your regular bank. That's it. You've just given every future dollar you save a head start it didn't have before. Now, up to this point, everything we've covered is about protecting and redirecting money you already have some access to. But there's a bigger question sitting underneath all of this, one that determines whether any of these steps actually add up to a full year of savings, or just a nice-sized cushion that stalls out around month 3. And that question is about to change how you think about the entire goal. So here's the question we left off on. All the leaks are plugged. The account is switched. The automatic transfer is running. So why do most people who do all of that still stall out around month 3, sitting on maybe $600, and never make it anywhere close to a full year? The answer isn't about money. It's about the goal itself. Point 6. Why save more fails and save towards something specific works. Here's a test. Tell someone you need an emergency fund, and watch what happens. Nothing happens. It's too vague. It's not a goal, it's a vibe. Now tell that same person you need $4,200, saved in 18 months, in this specific account, moving in 5 specific stages. Suddenly it's real. It's a target you can actually hit or miss. This is the exact shift that separates the people who reach a full year of savings from the people who stall at month 3. A full year of expenses sounds enormous when it's one giant number sitting out there in the distance. It stops sounding enormous the moment you break it into a ladder. I'm going to call this the 12-month ladder, and here's exactly how it works. Step 1. Figure out your actual bare-bones monthly expenses, not your normal spending, your survival spending. Rent, utilities, groceries, minimum debt payments, transportation. For someone like Sarah, working part-time retail hours, that number came out to about $650 a month. 12 months of that is $7,800. Here's why this actually works, and it's not just a motivational trick, there's real psychology behind it. Reaching rung 1 doesn't feel like I'm 10% of the way to a scary number. It feels like I did the thing. I have one full month of safety that didn't exist before. That's a complete win, not a fraction of one. And completed wins are what keep a habit alive long enough to reach the next one. You think chasing the full $7,800 from day 1 would get you there faster, since you're focused on the real target the whole time. Statistically, it's the opposite. People chasing the ladder in stages finish more often than people staring at the full number, because the full number is demoralizing enough to make most people quit before month 4. Point 7. The income side nobody wants to talk about. Now here's where I need to be completely honest with you, because everything so far has been about protecting money you already have. But if you're making $11 an hour, there's a ceiling on how far $5 transfers and canceled subscriptions can take you. At some point, the ladder needs another source of rungs. This is the part most videos skip, because it's less comfortable than just cut your coffee budget. But here's the real number. Sarah's first 18 months of progress were almost entirely from the habits we already covered. Her final 6 months, the ones that took her from 9 months of savings to a full year, came from roughly 6 extra hours a week of weekend work at a local bakery. I know what some of you are thinking right now. I don't have 6 extra hours. And for some of you, genuinely, that's true, and that's okay. The ladder still works slower, it just takes longer to climb. But for a lot of people watching this, that thought isn't really about time. It's about a belief that extra income isn't worth it for the amount of money it brings in. Here's the reframe. 6 hours a week, even at a modest hourly rate, is roughly $70 a week if it's routed entirely into savings, untouched, autopilot, same as the $5 transfer. $70 a week is over $3,600 a year. That's not a coffee budget adjustment. That's nearly half of Sarah's entire 12-month goal, from one weekend shift a week. The rule here is simple, and it connects straight back to the windfall rule from part 1. Any new income stream you add specifically for this goal doesn't get blended into your regular spending. It goes in a separate lane, straight to the ladder, the same day you're paid for it. The moment extra income mixes with regular income, it disappears into regular life. And the whole point of adding it was to not let that happen. Point 8. The 1-year mark isn't a money problem, it's a boredom problem. Here's something almost nobody warns you about, and it's the actual reason most people who make it to month 6 never make it to month 12. It's not a financial setback. It's boredom. By month 6, the excitement of "I'm building an emergency fund" has completely worn off. The account balance is growing slower than it feels like it should. Nothing dramatic is happening. And that flat, uneventful middle stretch is exactly where most people quietly stop transferring the $5, stop checking the account, and let the habit die, not because of a crisis, but because of nothing happening at all. Sarah almost quit at month 7. Not because anything went wrong. Because, in her own words, it just felt like nothing was happening anymore. Here's what got her through it, and it's the same thing that gets anyone through that flat middle stretch. She stopped looking at the total number, and started looking at the ladder rung. Instead of "I have $4,200, I need $7,800, it became "I'm $200 from rung 4. A smaller, closer target, sitting right in front of her instead of a big number sitting far away. This is the same reason a long car ride feels shorter when you're watching for the next town on a sign, instead of just staring at 4 more hours the entire drive. Point 9. The emergency that almost wasn't. 11 months into Sarah's plan, her car broke down. Transmission. The estimate came back at just under $900. A year earlier, that repair bill would have gone straight onto a credit card, at whatever interest rate that card happened to carry, turning a $900 problem into an $1,100 or $1,200 problem once the interest finished compounding. Instead, she paid it in cash from the fund, without missing a single bill that month, without a single phone call to a credit card company, without a single sleepless night wondering how it would get covered. And here's the detail that matters most: she didn't panic about losing progress. Because the fund did exactly what it was built to do. That's not a setback in the plan. That withdrawal is the plan working. This is worth saying directly, because a lot of people build a fund and then feel guilty the first time they actually use it, like they failed somehow. You didn't fail. A fire extinguisher going off during a fire isn't a broken fire extinguisher. It's the fire extinguisher doing its entire job. The goal was never to touch the money. The goal was to have money there the one time you truly needed it. She rebuilt that $900 over the following 7 weeks, using the exact same automated system that got her there the first time, because the system didn't disappear just because she used the fund once. That's the actual test of whether a savings system works, not whether you avoid ever needing it, but whether it keeps running after you do. Let's bring this all the way back to where we started. 2 people, same low income, one ends up with nothing saved and one ends up with a full year of expenses sitting in the bank. The difference was never the paycheck. It was 5 specific decisions. 1. The order money moves, savings first, not last. 2. Starting stupidly small, $5 a week, to build the habit before the amount matters. 3. Splitting every windfall, 70% locked away, 30% enjoyed guilt-free. 4. Auditing subscriptions and moving the whole thing into a high-yield account so your money isn't quietly losing value while it sits there. 5. Breaking the intimidating full-year number into the 12-month ladder, one rung at a time, so the goal never feels big enough to make you quit. Here's what I want you to do before this video ends, not after. Pick one, just one, of these 5 steps, and do it right now, today, while it's fresh. If you've got 2 minutes, open your banking app and set up that $5 automatic transfer. If your bank makes that hard to do or barely pays you anything to keep money there, that's usually the sign it's time to open something like Ally or Capital One 360 alongside it. Takes about 10 minutes, and it's the highest return on effort of anything in this entire video. Because here's the truth nobody tells you at the start of a video like this. The version of you 6 months from now doesn't get built by watching one more finance video. It gets built by the transfer you either set up in the next 60 seconds, or the one you tell yourself you'll set up later, and we both know how later usually goes. Sarah didn't have a big income. She had a system, and she followed it even on the boring months when nothing seemed to be happening. You don't need a bigger paycheck to start the 12-month ladder. You need the next 10 minutes. If this actually helped you see your savings differently, subscribe, because next week's video breaks down the exact debt order to follow once your first rung is built, so the money you're saving never gets undone by the debt sitting quietly in the background. That video builds directly on everything you just learned here, and skipping it means missing the piece that protects all of this progress. See you in the next one.